Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The grand hall of the Valorian palace sparkled with jewels embedded in the walls, casting a soft, iridescent glow that highlighted the intricate alien architecture. Slender, crystalline pillars rose high, each one carved with the history of the proud Valorian people, a civilization untouched, unyielding, and united in their fierce independence. Today, however, those same pillars bore silent witness to a scandalous and unprecedented gathering. Princess Liara stood at the edge of the hall, every inch of her tense and defiant. Her violet skin shimmered in the crystalline light, her silver hair flowing in cascades down her back like streams of liquid starlight. Her golden eyes, usually filled with the wisdom and calm befitting a Valorian royal, were narrowed in unmistakable fury. "What is the meaning of this?" Her voice was low and laced with restrained anger as she turned to her advisor, Counselor Theros, an elder with eyes filled with quiet wisdom. She struggled to keep her voice from shaking as she gestured toward the center of the hall. The man standing there, awkwardly and alone, was unlike any Valorian. Sergeant Jonah Morgan shifted uncomfortably, his rough figure dwarfed by the magnificence of the room. He was shorter than any Valorian male, and his skin lacked the radiant hue of her people. Instead, it was a plain, earthy tan, marred by faint scars earned in battles and training that had carved him into the soldier he was today. To Liara, he looked crude, lacking the elegance and beauty of her kind. He was human. Theros exhaled, keeping his composure despite Liara's evident fury. "Your Highness, the Galactic Council has determined that a union between a Valorian and a human is essential to solidify the peace treaty. After the recent conflict, they believe this marriage could represent a bridge between our worlds. Your position as a member of the royal family makes you the ideal candidate." Liara clenched her fists, her anger barely restrained. "An ideal candidate? This Jonah Morgan, is an insult to my station, my people. How could they expect me to?" "Your Highness." Theros placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "Remember, this is for the future of Valoria. The Galactic Council insists that such a union will unify our species and signify the end of hostilities. It is a heavy duty, but your strength is needed now more than ever." Liara glanced back at Jonah, her expression unyielding, filled with bitterness and indignation. Jonah met her gaze, his face a mask of stoic determination. Though he could not fully understand Valorian language, he could feel her contempt radiating like the heat from a fire. But he did not flinch. For Jonah, this was duty. He had fought in the war between their worlds, had seen the brutality and devastation firsthand. He was no stranger to sacrifice, and he'd agreed to this arrangement because he believed in peace, no matter the cost to his pride or his heart. With the council members looking on, Liara's mind raced through her options. Refusal was impossible without defying the Galactic Council and plunging her people into another war. But could she truly give herself to someone like this? Her pride rebelled, yet a small voice, buried under years of duty, wondered if she might have underestimated this human. For now, all she could feel was fury. The following morning, Jonah stood in the private quarters assigned to him, feeling dwarfed by the opulent alien surroundings. Every detail in the room, from the high, arched windows to the walls carved with constellations, spoke of a culture steeped in both mystery and pride. Yet it was all too clear that he was an outsider here. As he adjusted his uniform, he reminded himself that he was here for a reason greater than himself. A knock at the door brought him back to the present. The door slid open to reveal Counselor Theros, accompanied by Liara, whose expression was as stormy as it had been the day before. "Sergeant Jonah Morgan," Theros began, his voice even and formal. "As part of the treaty conditions, it has been deemed necessary that you and Princess Liara will enter a period of cohabitation to foster familiarity." Jonah's brows shot up, though he quickly schooled his expression. He stole a glance at Liara, who stood rigidly, her gaze fixed ahead, barely acknowledging him. She seemed to be struggling with her own reservations, her composure just barely masking the frustration simmering beneath. "Understood, Counselor," Jonah replied, his tone respectful. He had been briefed that the Valorians valued politeness and restraint, though it was hard to keep his voice steady with the fierce princess only a few feet away. Theros nodded approvingly. You will both reside in the East Wing, which has been prepared with chambers that connect your private quarters. It is our hope that this arrangement will assist in bridging your differences. As soon as Theros left, Jonah felt the weight of the silence settle over them. He glanced at Liara, who was glaring at the doorway Theros had just exited. It was Jonah who finally broke the silence, clearing his throat. "Princess Liara, I know this isn't easy for you," he said, choosing his words carefully. "It's not easy for me either, but maybe we can make this less uncomfortable if we just try to get along." Liara's eyes flashed as she turned to him. "Uncomfortable?" she echoed, her tone dripping with disdain. "I was born a princess of Veloria, destined to rule over thousands, trained in our people's ways of honor and strength, and now they expect me to get along with you." She almost spat the words, as if the very thought were offensive. Jonah swallowed, steeling himself. "With all due respect, Your Highness, I didn't ask for this either. But here we are, whether we like it or not. We both have our people counting on us." For a moment, Liara held his gaze, as if trying to measure his sincerity. Her expression softened slightly, though the storm in her eyes remained. "Very well," she said stiffly. "But do not mistake my tolerance for acceptance, human. This is not a choice I would make willingly." Without waiting for a response, she swept past him, heading to the suite they would share. Jonah exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. This was going to be even harder than he had thought. That evening, they dined in silence. The table was filled with delicacies Jonah had never seen, fruits and meats from alien creatures, each dish arranged in elaborate patterns that demonstrated the Valorians' artistic skill. Jonah had once prided himself on his adaptability, but he couldn't deny the sense of alienation he felt as he tried the unfamiliar food under Liara's silent scrutiny. The tension was palpable. Finally, Jonah decided to attempt conversation. "The food, it's different from anything I've tasted before. What is this dish called?" Liara's expression was impassive, though her voice softened ever so slightly as she answered. "That is Kyler fruit, harvested from the forests of our western lands. It is a rare delicacy, reserved for royalty." "Ah," Jonah nodded, trying to find something to say that wouldn't sound clumsy or ignorant. "It's very unique. Thank you for sharing it with me." Liara merely nodded, her gaze distant. Jonah could see the layers of pride and responsibility in her, the weight of her position evident in every graceful movement. She was like a blade, sharp, cold, and beautiful, yet deadly to the touch. As the dinner came to a close, Jonah rose to his feet, bowing slightly. "Good night, Your Highness." Liara inclined her head, her expression unreadable. "Good night, Sergeant Morgan." As Jonah retreated to his chambers, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was only beginning to scratch the surface of the fierce woman he was now bound to. He sensed that beneath the coldness lay something deeper, a complexity he was both wary of and inexplicably drawn to. Little did he know that their shared time in the East Wing would soon reveal more than he had ever anticipated. Jonah awoke the next morning to the soft glow of Valorian sunlight filtering through his window, the light reflecting off the crystalline walls and filling his room with an ethereal luminescence. Despite the beauty of his surroundings, he felt a growing apprehension as he prepared to face another day of enforced bonding with Princess Liara. After a simple breakfast in his quarters, Jonah was escorted to a training hall by a palace attendant. The hall was as magnificent as the rest of the palace, with towering ceilings and walls adorned with alien patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid under the light. He was greeted by Liara, already waiting, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. "Today we will train," Liara announced, her tone sharp. "It's essential that we learn each other's combat styles if we are to understand one another's strengths and weaknesses." Jonah hesitated. "Training together? Is that necessary?" "Necessary," Liara's eyes flashed. "I have heard humans speak of their strength, their resilience, but I have yet to see it. Consider this an opportunity to prove that you are more than just—" She let the sentence hang, her disdain apparent. Jonah set his jaw. Fine, if that's what it takes to earn your respect. They faced off on the training mat, the contrast between them stark. Liara moved with a grace and fluidity that reminded Jonah of a predatory animal, controlled, yet always poised to strike. Her alien physique was lean and strong, honed from years of Valorian combat training. Jonah, on the other hand, moved with the disciplined efficiency of a seasoned soldier, grounded and sturdy in his stance, his movements economical and precise. The session began as a test of skill. They circled each other, exchanging quick, probing attacks. Liara's strikes were faster than any opponent Jonah had ever faced, each blow carefully calculated and deceptively powerful. But Jonah had faced worse on the battlefield. He ducked, sidestepped, and blocked with a calm focus, slowly learning her rhythm. Then Liara's expression shifted from detached precision to something sharper, a fierce desire to prove herself, to make him submit. She lunged forward, increasing the intensity of her attacks, her strikes becoming more aggressive. Jonah could feel the sting of each hit, but he held his ground, refusing to falter. In a flash of movement, Liara swept Jonah's legs from under him. He landed heavily on his back, the air rushing from his lungs. Before he could recover, she was standing over him, her gaze fierce and triumphant. "Is this the strength of humans?" she taunted, her voice laced with scorn. "Are you also weak?" Jonah gritted his teeth, pushing himself up. "You're quick, princess. I'll give you that. But strength isn't just about speed." He rose to his feet, determination in his eyes. "Let's try that again." The session continued, both of them unwilling to back down, each determined to prove themselves to the other. Eventually, the physical contest gave way to mutual exhaustion. They stood facing each other, breathing heavily, sweat glistening on their skin. For a moment, there was a strange silence, a shared recognition of each other's resilience. "Not bad for a human," Liara admitted, almost grudgingly. Jonah allowed himself a small smile. "You're not so bad yourself for an alien." Liara's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of amusement in her gaze. "Is that your idea of a compliment?" Jonah shrugged. "I'll take what I can get." They shared a brief, tense silence, the charged air between them making it clear that their rivalry was far from over. But in that moment, a sliver of respect had begun to grow, whether Liara would admit it or not. Later that evening, as they dined together, Jonah couldn't help but notice that Liara seemed slightly less hostile. She still regarded him with wariness, but there was a new depth in her gaze, as if she were beginning to reassess him. He was surprised at how much it mattered to him, this unspoken shift in her opinion. As they ate, Jonah decided to take a chance. "So your people, they're strong, I can see that. But it's more than just strength, isn't it? There's something else that drives you." Liara looked at him, a guarded expression on her face. "The Valorians are bound by honor," she said slowly. "We fight not for conquest, but for the preservation of our people and our traditions. Each of us is a part of something greater, something ancient." Jonah nodded, intrigued. "It's similar for us in a way. On Earth, we fight for our nations, our families. But out here, it feels different, like we're all part of the same fight." Liara regarded him for a moment before responding. "Perhaps you understand more than I thought, human." The words were soft, almost reluctant. Jonah sensed that for Liara, admitting even this small acknowledgement was a significant concession. He felt a flicker of pride. Despite their differences, he was earning her respect. As the evening drew to a close, Jonah returned to his quarters, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Liara was fierce, proud, and undeniably intimidating, but beneath her cold exterior, he sensed there was more to her, a complexity he was only beginning to unravel. For the first time since his arrival in Valoria, Jonah allowed himself to hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could find common ground. And with that hope came a newfound determination to see this unlikely union through, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The next day dawned with a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Jonah could feel it from the palace attendants, the guards, and even the faint whispers echoing down the crystalline corridors. Today, the Galactic Council would convene to discuss the progress of the Human-Valorian Union, with particular interest in the arrangement between Liara and himself. Though Jonah knew the Council was rooting for the success of their alliance, he couldn't shake the feeling of being under a microscope. When he arrived at the Council chamber, Liara was already there, her posture poised and regal, her expression unreadable. She spared him a brief glance before returning her gaze to the Council members seated around the grand circular table. The Council members represented different factions of Valorian society, each of them a leader in their own right. Their judgment was final, their word law. Councillor Theros spoke first, his voice echoing in the grand chamber. Princess Liara, Sergeant Morgan, we trust that your time together has been productive. Liara inclined her head slightly. Productive, yes. The human has shown some skill and discipline. He has proven capable of learning our ways, even if he struggles to fully grasp them. Jonah fought the urge to roll his eyes, sensing the veiled criticism in her words. Still, he held his ground, offering a respectful nod to Theros. It's been an adjustment, but I believe we're making progress. Another council member, a severe-looking Valorian with piercing eyes, leaned forward. Progress is not enough. This union is meant to symbolize more than mere tolerance. The bond between you two is essential to establishing lasting peace between our worlds. It must be strong. Liara's jaw tightened. Jonah could see the tension in her stance, the pressure weighing heavily on her shoulders. She was a proud princess, raised to lead, and here she was being asked to embrace an alliance with a species she barely respected. Jonah cleared his throat, feeling a surge of unexpected determination. With all due respect, Your Honors, relationships aren't built overnight. I know that trust can't be forced, but I'm committed to making this work. I want peace between our people as much as any of you. Theros' gaze softened, but he remained stern. And you, Princess Liara, are you prepared to commit to this bond, to accept this human as a partner not only in title but in truth? Liara hesitated, her golden eyes flickering with a mix of defiance and reluctance. Jonah watched her, wondering what was going through her mind. Part of him feared she would reject him outright, that her pride would outweigh any sense of duty. But as the silence stretched, she finally lifted her chin, her voice steady and clear. Yes, she said, though her tone was measured. I am willing to commit, for the sake of my people. The council members exchanged approving glances, their expressions indicating satisfaction. Yet, Jonah could sense the challenge in her words. She was doing this out of obligation, not affection. He knew he had a long road ahead to earn her trust, and perhaps her genuine respect. As the council adjourned, Theros pulled Jonah aside, his gaze thoughtful. Sergeant Morgan, you must understand the weight of this alliance. For Liara, this union is not simply a partnership. It is a symbol, a responsibility. She carries the hopes of our people, and any vulnerability is seen as weakness. That is why she resists you. Jonah nodded slowly, absorbing Theros' words. I understand, and I don't want to make things harder for her. But if this alliance is going to mean anything, we need more than just duty holding us together. Theros regarded him with a hint of respect, a wise perspective for a human. But take care, our princess is proud, and it may take more than words to break through her defenses. As Theros departed, Jonah felt the weight of the challenge he faced. He couldn't help but feel a deepening resolve. He wasn't here to make Liara's life more difficult. He was here to show her that true partnership was possible, even between two seemingly incompatible people. That evening, Jonah joined Liara in the secluded gardens once more. She sat on a stone bench, her gaze fixed on the horizon, lost in thought. For a moment, Jonah considered leaving her alone, respecting her need for solitude. But something drew him forward, an unspoken need to bridge the distance between them. Rough day, huh? He said, keeping his tone light as he approached. Liara's eyes flickered toward him before she looked away. I did not ask for this responsibility, she murmured, her voice softer than usual. But now it seems I have no choice. My people demand it, the council expects it, and yet I feel as though I am losing myself in the process. Jonah felt a pang of empathy. I know what that's like. When I joined the army, I thought I'd be defending my home, my people. But out here, it's hard to feel like I'm still fighting for something I recognize. Sometimes, I wonder if I've lost sight of who I really am. They sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Then Liara surprised him by speaking again, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever feel alone, Jonah? The use of his name, spoken so gently, made his heart skip a beat. Yeah, he replied honestly. Sometimes more than I'd like to admit. It's hard, being away from everything familiar. Liara nodded slowly, her gaze distant. In my position, I am never truly alone, yet I am always isolated, surrounded by those who see me as a symbol, a figurehead, but never as a person. Jonah reached out, hesitating for a moment before resting a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone in this, Liara. I'm here, and I'm willing to listen, to try to understand. She looked down at his hand, her expression unreadable. For a moment, he feared she would pull away, retreating back into the cold distance she maintained between them. But to his surprise, she placed her hand over his, a small but powerful gesture of acknowledgement. Perhaps, she whispered, perhaps I have been too quick to judge you, Jonah. You are not what I expected. He smiled, his thumb gently brushing over her hand. Guess we're both surprising each other. A faint smile tugged at her lips, and for a brief moment, Jonah saw a softer, more vulnerable side of her, one hidden behind layers of duty and pride. He felt a surge of warmth, an unspoken connection forming between them. But as quickly as it had come, the moment passed. Liara withdrew her hand, her expression returning to its usual guardedness. We should return. The council will no doubt have more tasks for us in the morning. Jonah nodded, hiding his disappointment. He had seen a glimpse of the real Liara, the woman beneath the crown, and he was determined to see more. As they walked back to the palace, side by side, yet worlds apart, Jonah resolved to keep chipping away at the walls Liara had built around her heart. For now, he was patient, knowing that sometimes the strongest alliances took time to build. A few weeks had passed since the council meeting, and Jonah had started to settle into a routine in Veloria. Each day brought new challenges, training, cultural instruction, and occasional council observations. Yet, amid the demands of this strange life, he and Liara found themselves growing more accustomed to each other's presence. There was still tension, but it was no longer the open hostility they'd started with. Instead, an unspoken understanding began to bridge the chasm between them. One afternoon, Jonah was summoned to the council chambers unexpectedly. Liara was already there, standing beside Councillor Theros with a strained expression on her face. The council members, their expressions grim, directed their focus on him as he entered. Sergeant Morgan, Theros began solemnly, an incident has occurred at the border of our territories. A group of Velorian civilians was attacked, and preliminary evidence suggests that the perpetrators may be human raiders. Jonah felt his blood run cold. Human raiders, he repeated, struggling to process the accusation. Theros nodded gravely. Indeed, while we are not certain of their origins, the weapons and tactics used bear distinct markings of human warfare. We summoned you here because the council seeks clarity and, if necessary, retribution. Liara's gaze was fixed on him, a flicker of doubt and hurt crossing her face. Jonah could see the weight of her position pulling at her, torn between loyalty to her people and the fragile trust she had started to build with him. Your honors, Jonah spoke up, his voice steady but tense. I know my people, and while there may be those who act outside the law, I assure you that most of us are committed to peace. Let me investigate. Let me help find out who's responsible. The council members exchanged skeptical glances. Finally, Theros spoke. You offer your assistance, Sergeant Morgan, yet your allegiance to these humans could compromise your judgment. Jonah's jaw clenched. I understand the stakes, counselor, but I believe that trust is built through actions. Let me prove that I'm committed to our alliance, by helping you bring those responsible to justice. Liara watched him closely, her expression inscrutable. After a long silence, she nodded. If Jonah vouches for his people, I am willing to allow him to conduct this investigation. I will accompany him to ensure that justice is served. Theros studied them both before giving a curt nod. Very well. The two of you will travel to the border and investigate. We expect a full report on your findings upon your return. 2 days later, Jonah and Liara set out for the border, their journey marked by a tense silence. The hovercraft glided smoothly over the vast Valorian landscapes, its silent engines powered by alien technology that Jonah barely understood. He sat across from Liara, her gaze distant as she stared out at the scenery. After a while, Jonah broke the silence. I didn't expect to be put on trial by your council. They don't trust me, do they? Liara looked at him, her expression thoughtful. The council trusts only what is familiar. You are an outsider, and to them, you represent a threat, even if you have no intention of causing harm. He nodded, understanding but frustrated. And what about you? Do you trust me? Liara hesitated, her golden eyes meeting his. I trust that you believe in peace. But trust is earned, not given freely. This mission will be a test for both of us. Their conversation ended as the hovercraft arrived at the scene of the attack. The wreckage of a small Valorian convoy lay scattered across the ground, scorch marks and bullet holes covering the vehicles. Liara moved toward the wreckage with a careful but determined stride, while Jonah knelt beside her, examining the scene with a soldier's eye. These blast marks, Jonah muttered, running his fingers over the scorched metal. They don't match human weaponry exactly. It's similar, but there's something off. Liara watched him closely. You recognize these weapons? Jonah nodded slowly. I've seen something like this, but only in off-world raids, illegal groups that blend tech from different species. Mercenaries, smugglers, sometimes even pirates. Whoever did this, they might not be official military, but rogue elements operating outside of Earth's control. Liara's eyes narrowed, her suspicion easing slightly. So, you believe this attack wasn't sanctioned by your people? Jonah met her gaze with sincerity. Absolutely. And I'll help you prove it. They spent the next few days investigating, following leads and speaking with witnesses. Jonah's persistence impressed Liara, as he tirelessly sought to uncover the truth and protect the fledgling peace between their worlds. Gradually, she found herself reevaluating her assumptions about him. One evening, they found themselves resting by a campfire, far from any Valorian settlement. The night was quiet, the sky filled with stars that seemed closer than usual. Jonah leaned back, watching the flames dance, while Liara sat beside him, her usual guarded expression softened by fatigue. Jonah, she began, her voice softer than usual. I misjudged you. I assumed you would side with your people no matter what, but you've shown more loyalty to our alliance than I expected. He looked at her, surprised by the admission. Thank you, Liara. I'm just trying to do what's right, and maybe prove to you that we're not all that different. She nodded, her gaze thoughtful. Perhaps not, but our worlds have been divided for so long. It's difficult to bridge that gap. She paused, her voice lowering as she confessed. Sometimes I feel trapped between my duty and what I actually want. Jonah hesitated, choosing his words carefully. And what do you want, Liara? She looked away, as if struggling to admit the truth even to herself. I don't know yet. All I know is that I want to feel like I am more than just a tool of politics and power. Jonah reached over, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. You are. I've seen your strength, your dedication. You're more than a title or a duty. You're Liara, a fierce, proud, and intelligent woman. That's what I see. She glanced at him, her eyes softened by an emotion Jonah couldn't quite place. For a moment, they held each other's gaze, the tension between them shifting, turning into something unspoken but undeniably real. The moment was broken by a faint noise in the distance, a movement in the trees. Jonah's instincts kicked in immediately, and he pulled Liara down, motioning for silence. They waited, listening, as shadows moved around them. Jonah's hand brushed against his weapon, ready to defend. From the darkness, a group of figures emerged, armed raiders, their weapons trained on the campfire. Jonah and Liara exchanged a quick glance, their silent communication clear. They would fight together. In a swift, coordinated attack, the raiders charged, but Liara and Jonah moved in unison. Liara's grace and agility made her a deadly force, her every movement calculated and precise. Jonah, grounded and steady, provided the brute strength, taking down enemies with practiced efficiency. They fought back to back, their combined strength and skill overpowering the raiders until the attackers retreated into the night. When the dust settled, Jonah found himself breathing heavily, exhilarated yet wary. He turned to Liara, who looked just as exhilarated, her expression fierce and triumphant. "Not bad," she said, her voice slightly breathless. "For a human." Jonah laughed, shaking his head. "I could say the same for you, princess." They stood there, side by side, the thrill of battle bringing them closer than words ever could. In that moment, the walls between them seemed to fade, replaced by a bond forged not by duty, but by trust and shared experience. As the night deepened, they returned to their campfire, a newfound understanding between them. Liara looked at him, and for the first time, Jonah saw genuine warmth in her gaze. "You have proven your loyalty tonight, Jonah," she murmured. Perhaps I was wrong about you." Jonah smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond the fire. "And maybe I was wrong about you too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames as their bond quietly deepened, unspoken but undeniable. The morning sun rose over the camp, casting a warm light over the alien landscape. Jonah woke to the sound of rustling leaves and found Liara already awake, standing at the edge of their camp, looking out over the valley below. The events of the previous night were still fresh in his mind, the way they had fought together, protecting each other in perfect sync. As he approached her, she turned to face him, a small but genuine smile tugging at her lips. Jonah felt a surge of warmth at the sight. He had seen glimpses of Liara's true self, and now it seemed as though she was letting him in just a little more. "Good morning," he greeted, his voice soft but cheerful. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "It seems we make a formidable team, Jonah. I didn't expect to fight so well with someone so different from myself." Jonah chuckled, leaning against a nearby tree. "Guess we're not as different as we thought. We might come from different worlds, but when it comes down to it, we both know how to protect what matters." Liara tilted her head thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but you, Jonah, are unlike any human I have met. You carry strength with humility and resilience, without pride. It is unexpected." There was a quiet, vulnerable sincerity in her words, and Jonah felt a mix of humility and admiration welling up in his chest. "Thank you, Liara. I've seen the strength you carry too, the dedication to your people. And more than that, I think I'm starting to understand why you fight so fiercely. It's not just for duty, is it?" She hesitated, her expression faltering for just a moment. "No, it's not only duty. It's fear. Fear of losing everything we've built, everything that makes us Valorian." She paused, her voice growing softer. "And perhaps fear of losing myself." Jonah's gaze softened, and he took a step closer. "You don't have to face that fear alone, Liara. I'm here with you, for as long as you'll let me be." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Liara didn't look away. There was a charged silence between them, an unspoken connection deepening with each passing moment. Jonah could feel his heart beating faster, and though he hadn't expected it, he found himself drawn to her in a way that went beyond duty or alliance. Liara's eyes softened, her expression open and unguarded. "Jonah, I am beginning to see you not as a mere representative of your people, but as a person in your own right. I am grateful for your presence here." Jonah reached out, brushing his hand gently against hers, his touch light but sincere. "And I'm grateful to be here with you, Liara." Their fingers lingered together, a small but intimate gesture that felt more meaningful than any words could convey. For a brief moment, They were no longer a Valorian princess and a human soldier bound by duty. They were just two people, connected by shared experience and a fragile but growing trust. As they made their way back to the palace, the atmosphere between them had changed. There was an ease, a mutual respect that hadn't been there before. They shared conversation during the journey, discussing not only the mission but their lives, their pasts, and their dreams for the future. Liara told him about her childhood, about the pressures of growing up as royalty, the constant expectations that weighed on her shoulders. Jonah listened intently, sharing stories of his own struggles, of family members he missed back on Earth, and the battles he had fought that had left scars, both visible and invisible. By the time they reached the palace gates, they were laughing together, a sound that felt strange but liberating for both of them. Liara's laughter was soft and musical, a side of her Jonah had never seen. He couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth and pride that he had managed to break through her walls, even if only for a short time. As they entered the palace, however, their laughter was cut short by the sight of Theros and a few council members waiting for them. The air grew tense as Theros stepped forward, his expression severe. "Princess Liara, Sergeant Morgan." He greeted them, his tone formal. "We received word of your encounter with the raiders. The council is pleased that you were able to fend off the attackers and that your investigation yielded valuable information." Jonah glanced at Liara, feeling a sense of relief. "Thank you, Counselor Theros. I hope this helps to strengthen the alliance." Theros gave a brief nod but turned his gaze to Liara, his expression hardening slightly. "Princess, a word with you alone." Liara's expression faltered, but she inclined her head, following Theros down a corridor. Jonah watched them go, a sense of unease creeping over him. He had no idea what was being said behind closed doors, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. In the privacy of Theros' chamber, the counselor turned to Liara, his gaze stern. "Princess, you must not forget your duty. Your bond with Sergeant Morgan is important, but it is also a delicate matter." Liara frowned. "I am aware of my duty, Counselor Theros. The alliance between our people depends on this bond, and I have been committed to it." Theros' eyes narrowed. "Committed, yes, but perhaps you have grown too close to this human. Remember, he is an outsider, a human. The alliance is built on trust, yes, but there are boundaries that must not be crossed." Liara felt a flicker of anger rising in her chest. "And who are you to dictate where those boundaries lie? Jonah has proven himself loyal, honorable, and committed to peace. He is more than just a human. He is my ally." Theros' expression softened, but his gaze remained intense. "You understand, Princess? But your loyalty lies first with Valoria. Remember that." Liara met his gaze, her expression resolute. "I know where my loyalty lies, Counselor, and I will not allow prejudice to cloud my judgment." Theros regarded her in silence, his lips pressed into a thin line. Finally he nodded. "Very well, Princess. I trust you know what you're doing." As she left Theros' chambers, Liara felt a surge of frustration and defiance. She was tired of the expectations, the rigid boundaries imposed upon her. She had found something rare in Jonah, a connection, a companionship that transcended politics and duty, and she wasn't willing to let that go. That evening, Jonah found her in the palace gardens. She seemed distant, her gaze lost in the star-filled sky. He approached quietly, sensing her inner turmoil. "Liara, is everything all right?" he asked gently. She turned to him, her expression softer than usual. "Jonah, there are those who would question the bond we've begun to build. They see you as the risk." Jonah frowned, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "A risk? I'm here because I believe in peace, because I believe in you." She smiled, a flicker of warmth in her gaze. "And I believe in you, Jonah. But our worlds are complicated. Expectations, tradition, loyalty. They can be difficult to reconcile with feelings." Jonah took her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "I don't care what they think, Liara. I'm here with you, and I'm willing to face whatever challenges come our way, as long as you're by my side." They stood there in silence, their hands entwined, the weight of their circumstances pressing down on them. Yet, for a moment, all that mattered was the warmth of each other's presence, the steady beat of their hearts. As they gazed into each other's eyes, the distance between them seemed to vanish, and, as if drawn together by an invisible force, they leaned in, their lips meeting in a soft, tender kiss. It was brief, almost hesitant, but it held a world of unspoken promises and fragile hope. When they pulled apart, Liara's gaze was filled with emotion, her usual guardedness replaced by a quiet vulnerability. "Jonah," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Whatever happens, thank you for being here." Jonah smiled, his own emotions swirling. "I wouldn't be anywhere else." They stood there, hand in hand, under the starlit sky, knowing that their journey was only just beginning, and that no matter what came next, they would face it together. After their shared moment in the garden, Liara and Jonah continued to grow closer. They spoke with an ease that was once unimaginable, discussing not only their responsibilities but their hopes and fears. Their connection deepened, not only out of duty but out of genuine respect and affection. Despite this, tension with the council grew. Theros, now wary of their bond, continued to monitor their interactions closely, his concerns about the alliance overshadowing Liara's changing perception of Jonah. Liara, however, had reached a turning point. She refused to let prejudice dictate her choices. One morning, the council gathered to review the recent attack and Jonah's role in defending Valorian territory. Theros, leading the discussion, hinted at reservations about the human presence. But Liara, now confident in her loyalty to both her people and Jonah, stood up in defense of their alliance. "Sergeant Jonah Morgan has shown nothing but commitment to our peace. I will not see him undermined by unfounded doubts," she declared, her voice steady and resolute. Theros, taken aback by her assertiveness, looked to the other council members, but their silence signaled their reluctant agreement with the princess's decision. That evening, Liara and Jonah shared a quiet moment, both feeling the weight of their victory and the battle still ahead. They knew there would always be challenges, but with each passing day, their bond became a symbol of hope, not just for themselves but for both their worlds. In the end, they realized that their alliance was far more than a treaty. It was a bridge, a promise, and a chance to create a future shaped by unity rather than division. Together, they would face whatever came next, knowing that they had found something truly worth